Okay, nature lovers, today we're going to talk about probably the most fundamental chemical reaction that happens on the planet. When I say fundamental, I don't mean it's the first or the most basic. There's lots of them like that that are before this. This is actually moderately complicated. But what I want to talk about is fundamental to life, fundamental to us. We wouldn't exist without it, and that, if you're is photosynthesis. Okay, and plainly put, photosynthesis does two things that relate directly to humans. Number one, it gives us energy. Number two, it gives us oxygen. Those two things make it crucial, make it our favorite chemical reaction. Okay? So what exactly is going on here in photosynthesis? Well, basically what happens is it starts by taking the sun. Let's make it big. Here's our sun. And we got all these crazy chemical reactions going on there, the truly basic ones. Hydrogens slamming into each other and becoming heliums, heliums being ripped apart and becoming two hydrogens, those atoms changing over and over again, and all that energy being released. And all that energy is released and makes our sun. Okay? And the energy is released in two basic forms. Yeah, maybe three, but two basic ones. The first one is heat, which shoots off. The second one is light, which shoots off. Okay? And so as the heat and the light shoot through space, they go all over space. Eventually, some of that heat and light, which is really, okay, to be truly honest, truly at this point, that heat and light, as it leaves here and goes, it's not heat, it's light, but it's also radiant energy. Radiant energy, and that radiant energy hits the earth, and right there, and it's changed from radiant energy into heat, generally. If you guys remember your physics, energy's never created, it's never destroyed, it just changes. Okay? It never totally goes away. It never comes from nowhere. It changes. And so here, it's chemical energy that's changed to radiant energy, which goes via waves till it hits the earth, and it's captured as light energy, and it's captured as heat energy. But where we're interested in is light energy. And the light energy travels from the sun to the earth as a photon. A what? A photon. A photon is a little ball of energy that happens to travel in a wave. But it does it fast, 186,000 miles a second, or let's see, 300,000 meters a second. There you go. Even so, it's 93 million miles from here to here. That takes about 8 minutes for a photon to all the way to here. 8 minutes. Anyway, once it gets here, and of course, remember, you know, there's another one going this way, and another one going this way, and another one going this way, and another one going this way, another one going this way, another one going that way. It's going all over the place. Okay. Once that gets here on Earth, it hits a tree. Okay? Maybe let's make that a little bigger. So the photon hits the tree. And the tree's made up of lovely things called leaves. So this oak tree, you see the sun, 93 million miles away. Hello. And its light is shining on these oak leaves. Okay? Now within the oak leaves, like all living things, oak leaves are made of cells. Here's a cell. Boom, boom, boom. Inside these cells, and I don't know, let's make this big for a second. Let's go over everything. See these little tiny dots right here? That is a chloroplast. Okay, do I need to type that out? I'll type it in a second. So that's a chloroplast. And this is where photosynthesis happens. And you notice inside this leaf cell, there are, I don't know, let's count. Let's not, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, we're just getting started. We're already at 12. There's probably 50 to 100 chloroplasts inside that one cell. Okay? So you got all those chloroplasts inside a cell that's inside this leaf. Let's put it back over here. So we start the sun, go to the earth, go to the tree, go to the leaf, go to the chloroplast. And inside each chloroplast, it looks like this. And let's see if I can make a little room so I can make that a little bigger. Okay, let's look inside our friend the chloroplast. Okay. Ooh, that got funky. Alright, there we go. And here's what a chloroplast looks like. It's got a double membrane, just like all cells do. This is not a cell. This is inside a cell. Okay, but it has a membrane like what's around a cell. It has two of them. One there, one there. Then inside it, it's got these stacks. And these stacks are called granum. Okay, where's our word? Right there, granum. And each individual looks like a green coin, right? That green coin is called a thylakoid. And that's where part of photosynthesis happens. How many of you have heard of chlorophyll? Raise your hand. I'll wait. Really? You haven't? No, that's okay. We'll get everybody else caught up. All right. Chlorophyll is a pigment. Now, what does a pigment do? A pigment absorbs light, but certain wavelengths of light. And I guess, really, this is a great time to ask the question, do you guys understand what that means? Well, light is made up of lots of photons that are all going at different wavelengths. They have different size waves as they come from the sun. And depending on their wavelength, how big that wave is, depends on what color we perceive it as. Okay? So a blue light has one wavelength, and a red light has a different wavelength, and a green light has a different wavelength. Okay? Our eyes perceive things. Now, here's the cool thing. So this is our wavelength. It hits something and it bounces off. Okay? When it does, let's say that light, we're looking at this. So a photon comes in here, hits this, and bounces out. Let's pretend this is out towards you. Bounces out towards you, and most of that light is absorbed. Okay? And it changes. It's light energy, radiant energy, and it changes all of a sudden to heat and maybe to chemical energy, as we'll see. But some of that light, the green wavelength, reflects off. So chlorophyll does not absorb green light. No, sirree, Bob. Chlorophyll absorbs other colors of light, most specifically red light and blue light. Red and blue. Okay, that's the colors that are absorbed. Green is reflected. Okay, so that's the energy source for this whole crazy process called photosynthesis. Okay, let me clean things up. Okay, so what happens here? Well, basically, in between these thylakoids is this fluid right here. This is called stroma. And so here's the important stuff. The thylakoid is this. The stroma is the fluid. This is where the two parts of photosynthesis happen, inside a chloroplast. Didn't know it's so complicated, huh? It is. Let me shrink this bad boy down for a minute. Let's put him over here. Okay, now, so basically what happens is photosynthesis is a cool operation. It turns radiant energy into chemical energy. Chemical energy is what we use to live. And chemical energy is typically a carbohydrate. Carbs, right? Everybody's turning carbs. Well, carbohydrate is comes in a lot of forms. Okay, they can be complicated like starches, or they can be simple like glucose. And sugar, when you hear the word sugar, that's a carbohydrate. Okay, so here's different kinds of sugars: fructose, lactose, sucrose, dextrose, glucose. Anything that has ose at the end is a type of sugar, and it's really just the shape of the sugar. Most of these have the exact, not all, but most of these have the same chemical structure, and that is C6H12O6. And what that means is it has 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. And photosynthesis makes this stuff. This equals, kind of in the simple world, glucose. Okay? That's a G, if you can't tell. Glucose. Okay, so the real question is how does photosynthesis make sunlight into glucose? Well, I'm going to show you. It's not just glucose. I'm sorry, it's not just sunlight. There's a couple things here that you need to see, and let me show you. Okay, let's look back at our picture of the tree. So the tree is surrounded by air, and air has lots of stuff in it, nitrogen, oxygen, but one of the big things that we care about right now is carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon dioxide, let's write that right there, carbon dioxide, which is 1 carbon and 2 oxygen. That's what carbon dioxide means. Okay. For photosynthesis to work, though, we need a lot of carbon dioxide. We also need rain or water of some sort. So we need water. And so we have H2O. Now, the reason I'm using these chemical symbols is I want you to kind of see the relationship. So we have carbon dioxide, we have H2O, which is 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. So you just look right here, we have 1 carbon, we have this oxygen plus these 2, 3 oxygen, and 2 hydrogen. 1, 2, 3. Easy. 1, 2, 3. Okay. These combine to make one of these, which is 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, and 6 oxygen. You might notice that there's only 2 hydrogen here and 12 hydrogen there. So that's not the same. We got to work on that. We will. But this is where the sunlight comes in. The sunlight is sort of the stimulus, the power behind all this, and this causes this stuff to recombine to make this. And where does that happen? It happens in there in those thylakoids and in that stroma of the chloroplast, which we see right there, in the leaf, in the plant. This also happens in algae. Matter of fact, it happens probably more in algae. But for our purposes, focus on the plant. Okay. All right, so here we are. We're at our chemical equation again. That, I guess, let's go ahead and add sunlight plus sun. I'm just going to put sun. And that gives us, that yields this glucose and oxygen. So this yields C6H12. Look, I am writing with my feet just like Jacob. Okay, just kidding, Jacob. Okay, or am I? All right, so that's our glucose, and then also oxygen. And oxygen molecules are usually, 2 atoms together. So O2, that's a 2. It's wimpy looking, but it's a 2. So here's our whole equation. Yeah, you need to know this. Carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight gives us glucose plus oxygen. Now here's the deal. To make sure that we know how much is needed of everything, really our goal is to make one of these bad boys. So how does that work? I hope you remember your chemistry. We need to make sure we have the same amount of carbons here as here. So that makes it pretty simple. Let's look here. So we have we got 6 carbons here, we got 1 here. That doesn't work, so we got to make that 6, right? So we have 6 carbon dioxides. So now we have 6 carbons, check. I know, we check there. All right. Now let's look at hydrogens. We have 2 hydrogens here. We have 12 hydrogens here. That doesn't add up. We've got to make these the same. So 12 divided by 2, 6. So I bet if we put 6 water here. Okay, so what's that give us? That gives us 6 times 2 equals 12. Check. Okay, now wait a minute, honcho. 6 times 2 is 12 oxygen. And 6 times 1 is 6 oxygen. 6 plus 12 is 18 oxygen. Is that right? Yeah, 18 oxygen. But look over here. We've got 6 and 2. That's 8. That's not right. That's not right, is it? Well, not quite, but almost. So if we've got 6 here, what could we do to this? How many oxygen are created? Oh, wait a minute. So 6, let's see, we need 18. We subtract 6, that leaves us 12. If we take 12 and divide by 2, oh, so 6 oxygen there. Okay, look at that, sports fans. Now we've got a balanced equation. So for every single glucose molecule, we need 6 carbon dioxide, we need 6 water, we need some sun, shake it all up, smile, leave a tip for your bartender, and we're left with 1 glucose and 6 oxygen. Awesome! Now that all happens in here, and it happens in 2 reactions. I'm almost done for today, bear with me. Here's the 2 reactions. The first one is called a light dependent. So light, meaning we have to have that sunlight that we talked about. We have to have that. Okay? And this happens in your thylakoid. This requires the sunlight, requires that chlorophyll that I talked about, the pigment. It requires all those things to make that happen. Okay? That's light dependent. Let's see if I can write that. Dependent. Oh, look at that. I'm not bad. Okay, Jacob, see how I'm doing it? All right, good. The other one is called a light independent. The fancy name for it is Calvin cycle, but most people call it the light, here I go again, independent. I know, you're thinking this takes forever, Epps. And you know what? It does. Wait, I feel like I can write faster. Hang on. And finishing. Look how fast that was. Woo! Light independent. So light dependent and light independent. Light dependent requires the sunlight. It's the first step of photosynthesis. Happens here in the thylakoids. Next to the thylakoids is the stroma, and that's where the light independent, which does not require sunlight. Light independent is the second step of photosynthesis. That's where that happens. Light independent reaction, also known as the Calvin cycle. When these 2 things are done, you end up having glucose and you end up having oxygen, which are the 2 big things that photosynthesis brings to the table for life on Earth. Okay, what do you think, nature lovers? Any questions? Okay, if so, ask me tomorrow. Bye.